So your midterm will consist of multiple choice, true and false, and short answer or essay questions. We're going to go through them. First of all, let's briefly talk, because I think what we need to have here is a clear understanding of the different Rockwell software. First of all, Factory Talk, or well, they've changed the name so many times, but Factory Talk View Studio is the development software. But it can communicate to three different type packages. There's three separate installs for this. You're with me so far? There's three different types. While there are some limitations to the Factory Talk View ME as far as screen resolution and animation, you have a smaller resolution, on the panel view, but there are three types of HMI interfaces that Rockwell offers. There is the Factory Talk ME, which runs on standalone touchscreens. However, it may also, if they purchase a license, run in an emulator client. So it doesn't necessarily have to run on a touchscreen. However, it is limited by the different types of animation and data collection and just how nice it looks, because they're putting it on a small Windows CE environment, so it's just not going to have all the full features as you would run on a Windows PC. Then we have Factory Talk View SE, or Side Edition, local. There's a key word there, local. And we have a sample application here, and I'm going to open it up. These are on all of the computers. Factory Talk View, Factory Talk View Studio. Of course, when it first opened, do you see where it says Network Distributed, Network Station, Local Station, and then Machine Edition? Those are the four different types of software, but they basically all look the same. There's some slight differences. As far as developing screens and everything, there's really no difference. It's how they're put together. So the local edition, everything is housed on one PC. Are you with me? We good? Everything we need is on one PC. On the Side Edition, the network version, the HMI is on one PC, and which they, depending on what license you buy, allows multiple computers with the runtime client to log into this one PLC and run it across the network. So they're running the application across the network. You understand? So you have one computer with the network station, and it's running the HMI in the background. You don't see it. And then all the client computers log into it, and they run that same application. So if you have an application that's going to be installed at 20 different locations throughout your plant, you would want the network station, because if you have to make changes or updates, you make it to one computer and it automatically populates the rest of the system. Are you with me? Then there is Network Distributed, which is the same thing as the network station, except, let's open this up here. I'm going to open up the local station. I don't think I have a application for the rest. The difference being is the Network Distributed application, we can have our alarm server located on one PC. We can have data collection on another PC. And then we can have the HMI application on one PC. So it's distributed across like a server. You could have it all. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, it just depends. If you're collecting a lot of data, you may want to have this go into a different PC. So the data, if you have to reboot one PC, the data collection is still running. Does that make sense? You're really I mean, I don't think I've ever seen one in practice. As far as I've messed with network, but network distributed, most people just stick it on the same PC and be done with it. But those are the 4 types of applications. There's Factory Talk View ME, Machine Edition, that runs on a graphics terminal. There's Factory Talk View SE, Standard Edition, that runs on a PC or local edition. And then there is the Factory Talk View SE Network. It runs on a PC but allows client PCs to log into it and run the application remotely. And then there's a Factory Talk View SE Network Distributed, the same as the SE Network, except the alarms, data, and tag servers can reside on different computers. Make sense? Now, we went through that, and I'm telling you that's a short answer in your own words. So is Factory Talk View ME a distributed network station? Is it distributed across the network? Yes or no? Yeah, Machine Edition. No, it's not. It's not distributed. It's housed on the local HMI. Remember that RS Links Enterprise, that is our communication server that is built in. See that? That's how we talk to all this stuff. So while this is one application, it encompasses several different pieces of software. It links them up, just like your programming software, your PLC programming software requires RS links to connect to the network and talk to stuff. So all of these packages kind of work together. Now, global objects and global connections are different. Remember that, because if we go to our book and we talk about global connections here, we can look at some of the global connections here, and it just lists some. I don't go into a lot of depth in there, but you know, one of the big things you would use global connections for is if I need to automatically change the HMI screen, I can do that with a global connection. Or I want to synchronize my time, something like that. So that's one of the advantages of global connections. You need to know the difference between the application manager and the transfer utility. What's the application manager? They're separate little pieces of software that can all be launched. But what's the application manager do? It's our backup, restore, rename, export, import. That's the separate little utility that we use to back up this project, which is basically a way to zip it all up into an export. Speaking of that, what's the file extension for that backup? Anybody know? Sometimes it's good to pay attention to that. It is a .apa file, .apa file. What is the file extension for the runtime application that we download into the panel view? I know our window, you probably didn't see it because it's not set to show file extensions, but it's a MER file, .mer. So when you're looking in the manual, it'll refer to, or you'll look in the help sections, it's going to refer to how do I restore the MER file or the runtime file. So you need to know that extension, because if somebody hands you a backup and they say, here's my backup, and they hand you a backup and it's a MER file, that's not a true backup. That is the runtime file. And if it is an older runtime file, like version 5 or 4, I think it's version 4 or below, you can't restore your application from that. You can't break it apart and restore it. So you got to know there's a cutoff date where they started letting you do that. So your runtime file in the panel view and the older ones, you can't download that and open it. You got to have the original developmental application. The runtime file on the newer versions of this, I forget 5 and above or 6 and above, you can download that MER file and restore it and open it. However, there are a few things that don't come in. One of them, if I remember correctly, being the security passwords that allow you to access the screens. You can fix that. You just have to go enter new passwords, but you download it and you can't get to stuff because the passwords aren't in that system. So, the what? Communications? No, you have to set all that back up. I'll be honest with you, every time you download to a panel view, you should check the little box that says apply communication path update. I've just had issues not doing that. So in the past, they may have gotten better at it. I don't know. So the transfer utility is separate from the software. So we go to tools, and if we launch the transfer utility, that opens up a separate window. Now this doesn't actually cost money. So what they're saying is if you buy a panel view and somebody hands you a backup file, you don't have to purchase the developmental software in order to restore your backups. That makes sense? So you don't need it. All you need to transfer it, or you can do it on a USB drive. But you can transfer it with this utility, but you have to create a runtime application, and then you have to go open it with the transfer utility and download it. Which brings us to another point. You know, we're trying, this is part of the new EET degree program. I'm going to make you, as part of your midterm, demonstrate the ability to download to a panel view and then upload from it. So you should be able to download to it, and we'll practice that and make sure everybody's good after I get through with reviewing. But you should be able to set up communications and download to a panel view at this point. I know we've been working on our screens, but I know you've done it several times. It might be rusty. It's been a few weeks, so we'll make sure that you get some practice tonight. Referenced page 50. We're going to kind of jump around because when I built this test, I put my notes in the questions that reference the page that I'm talking about. So when I say reference page 50, there's a question off that. So we'll go to page 50, and we will be jumping around. I don't try to get them in order, but I don't know if we will or not. So reference page 50. You need to pay attention to the graphic on here. Know that these are our labels, and this is where we enter the data, okay, for our alarm setup. Are you with me so far? Oh, this graphic right here. Remember when I told you about alarming? And how I told you the best way is probably bit level trigger, but if we look at this trigger, this alarm word, it's triggered off value 1. What bit is that? What is the actual address? The trigger value is 1. What's the actual bit level address? It looks for that bit to go high, and then it sends a high level signal. So what's the actual address? It's main dot alarm underscore word dot what? 0. It is 1 off. If I trigger on value 1, I'm actually triggering on the first bit in the word, which is actually addressed bit 0. So it's 1 off. Does that make sense? So if I triggered on value 3, what would be the actual address? 2. So I'm going to pay attention to that. You remember parameters? Remember your parameter files start with a hashtag. Okay. And that hashtag is designated that this is parameter 1. And if we went over here to our display and we did a manual pop-up, we would see that the addressing on that is also has that parameter reference. So remember that what those hashtag designated parameter. Page 483. Kind of skipping around, but I want to make sure I don't skip a question either. You need to know what a trend is. Referenced page 43 of your book. We'll go all the way back to 43 of the user manual. You need to know the different parts of the FactoryTalk GStudio interface. So this has a picture diagram, and then it shows here what those mean. So 1 is the menu bar, file, applications, tools, windows, etc. So 1 is the menu bar. So you need to understand. I'm gonna test you over the different parts of the application so you can identify. So what's 3? Let's look. That's the Explorer window. Where was my hint? It says Explorer right here. So pay attention to that part. This is quite a few questions. Okay. You're not going to have short answer on it. You don't have to memorize them verbatim, but let's just say it's matching. How's that sound? Reference page 486. We're going back to the trend chart here. You like matching games? You need to know this, what the different tabs are. What's general? What do you do with it? Set up the chart style and update mode. What's the connection tag? That's where you set up the tags and show data for. So I would highly recommend you study this graphic. Reference page 53 of your user manual. Talks about planning applications. You must understand the process and the steps to gather information. Look at all these steps right through here. So you need to understand the planning stages of developing an HMI, which we will practice in our final project probably tonight as we begin it. And I don't need them. I don't need verbatim. If you can do verbatim, that's great, but in your own words. Reference page 55. It talks about a hierarchy of displays. So you need to be able to, in your own words, tell me what that is. Here it is. But basically, before you do your application, you need to plan, do I need an overview screen? Do I need a recipe screen, a trend screen, a detailed view screen? How many? This is a big system. I can't fit them all on one screen. I might have to split it up, et cetera, et cetera. You need to figure that out before you build the first graphic. Reference page 451. You need to explain to me what a tag placeholder is and how it works. We just talked about that earlier, but you need to, in your own words, explain to me what a tag placeholder, which the tag placeholder is the data inside a parameter file, right? That's our file. It's a hashtag #1 parameter, but it's inside the parameter file. So you need to be able to tell me what a tag placeholder does. Here's a parameter file. It contains one tag placeholder, the word drain. Reference page 407 of your manual. About animating graphic objects. Here are all the different types of animation. If you've been to class and paid attention, you should be able to pop up 5 of them off the top of your head, write them in there. So there's 11. So reference page 459. Global objects. I'll even tell you the question. In your own words, explain what a global object is and why we use them. You remember? Michael. It's a object that we can, like a navigation bar, or it could be a overview screen. But if it's something we're going to deploy across the application, it's better to have it on as a global object. So I make one change, populate the rest of the application. That, along with demonstrating the ability to upload and download to a panel view, is your midterm review.